Terrific. Let me just hit a couple buttons, y'all, and we'll get started. The perils of two cameras. I have to hit all of the buttons twice. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We are going to work on the men's basic hat and scarf set. That is a Caron pattern, and we're going to use Caron Simply Soft. This is a heather, and I really like this. Looks like I did my other sample in tweed. This is what happens when you have way too many balls of yarn in your house. It looks like I did my other sample in gray tweed instead of gray heather. But here's the gray heather. They, I believe, used a darker color in the photos, but I don't like to use super dark colors because then you can't see what I'm doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about casting on and getting established in our rib pattern. So I'm going to do that from scratch. And then I'm going to sneak this little piece out that I already did some work on, and we're going to talk about the crown shaping. I don't think we're going to have to go too crazy worrying about the scarf, because I feel like after we've done some work on the hat, I think the scarf is going to be super easy and you're not going to have to worry about it. So the first thing that we're going to do, now you're going to have two sizes of needles. You're going to have a US 6, which is a 4mm, and a US 7, which is a 4.5mm, or of course size needed to obtain gauge. And what that means is if you knit super tight and the fabric is not pleasing or doesn't measure what we tell you it should in the gauge area, then you're going to go to a bigger needle. And if your work is super loose and floppy and you can see through it and you don't want to, you're going to go down to a smaller needle. But let's talk about the cast on. So I'm just going to do the knitted on cast on, which we use for most of our patterns here at Yarnspirations. So I'm going to begin with a slip knot. I'm going to pull up a loop in the yarn. So this piece is on the top. This is the tail yarn. The tail yarn is the cut end. And the yarn that's on the bottom is the working yarn. And the working yarn is what we call the yarn that is joined to the ball or the skein of the yarn. So here's my little twisted loop. I'm going to reach through the loop, grab up that working yarn and pull it through, and give that tail just a little tug. I don't want to pull it too tight. Now I can put that on my left-hand needle and give a little tug on both strands of yarn, and that's going to pull it up onto my needle. So I'm beginning with my smaller needles, and the reason we're doing that is we want the ribbing to fit snugly around the brim of the hat so it fits nicely. We don't want cold air getting in there. So that's why we're using the smaller ones to start. So to do the knitted cast on or the knitted on cast on, you begin as if you're going to knit. So I'm going to insert my right hand needle tip through the front leg of the stitch on the left hand needle. Now this slip knot does count as a stitch when we're counting. Then I'm going to yarn over. So I'm going to bring my yarn around and between those two needles. And then I'm going to use my right hand needle tip to bring that working yarn through the loop. Now, if this was a knit stitch, I'd put it off the left hand needle. I would push it off, but we're casting on. So we're adding loops, not getting rid of any. So I'm going to pull this loop out a little bit, and then I'm going to give it a little twist. So watch my left hand needle tip. I'm going to go from right to left under the front leg of the stitch, put it on that needle and give it a little bit of a tug. You don't want to pull it super tight. So now I have 2 stitches on my left hand needle. Let's take a look at that a few more times. So I'm going to act like I'm going to knit the stitch, yarn over and pull it between the 2 needles. Now you can also see that I'm keeping the least little bit of tension on the right hand needle. I don't want, on the right hand, the working yarn, because I don't want that stitch to pop off the end of the needle. So I have that one on my right. I'm bringing my left hand needle under. So I'm giving it a little twist and a little tug, but again, not super tight. Act as if to knit, yarn over, draw that through, give it a little twist, put it on the left hand needle. Now I'm just going to cast on a few stitches. when we get to the interesting part. I have that little sample that I made for you last night. But I know, because I've been working on this for a while, we want to cast on a multiple of 4 plus 2. So I think I'm going to do, let's do 14 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. Now, if you know a different cast on, it's okay to use it. This is just the one we recommend most often here at Yarnspirations. But if you're more familiar with a different cast on, the only one I would avoid for a hat, I would avoid the backwards loop or the cursive E cast on. It's the same thing, it's just 2 different names. But that gets super loose when you cast on so many stitches, and you are going to cast on 106 stitches. So I wouldn't use anything that loosens up as you knit on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oops, one more.
Is this more stretchy than long tail cast on?
No, it is not more stretchy than long tail cast on. It's similar. Again, generally speaking, I'm a long tail girl. I use long tail for many, many things. But again, Yarnspirations always recommends this one, the knitted or the knitted on cast on for beginners, just because they're so familiar with the knit stitch already, or they've learned the knit stitch, that this cast on makes the most sense to them. So a long tail cast on would also be fine, or any kind of fancy cast on that you know. But because this is a beginner class, I don't want to spend too much time on different cast ons. We're just going to go ahead. Now, if I was knitting the scarf, I would just work in knit 2, purl 2 ribbing. So I'd go knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2 on my right side rows. And on my wrong side rows, it would be purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, etc., with a purl 2 on the last 2 stitches. So the scarf, all the stitches are in pairs all the way across. But on the hat, they're offset a little bit. So let's talk about what I mean, and then I'm going to talk about why we do that, because there is a reason, there is a method to our madness. So looking at the instructions, it's the first row, and RS, it's telling me it's the right side. So I'm going to knit 1. And then there's my asterisk, and it says knit 2, purl 2, repeat from asterisk across to last stitch, knit 1. So now that I have knit that first stitch, now I'm going to do my knit 2, purl 2. So it's knit 2, purl 2. The only tricky part to ribbing is making sure that you are bringing your yarn back and forth to where you need it between the needles. You don't want to go over and accidentally add a stitch. So my yarn's in the back for my knit 1, knit 2. My next stitch is a purl, so I have to bring that yarn forward, but I want to, again, between the needles, make sure you're not going over. Purl 2. Knit 2. Purl 2. And now I'm at that last stitch, and the instruction tells me to knit 1. Now, if you are right-handed, a good way to remember whether you're working on a right-hand side row, or right side row or wrong side row is, so I just completed that right side row, correct? And my tail is over here, it's by my left hand. When I go to the wrong side row, the tail is by my right hand. So that's a good way if the phone rings or the dog barks or somebody needs your attention, and you put your work down and you come back and you go, oh heck, I can't remember if it was a right side row or a wrong side row. Having the having the tail, noticing where the tail is can help you. So for row 2, we're going to purl 1. And now there's an asterisk, and it's going to be knit 2, purl 2 to the last stitch. Here's my knit 2. And then when I get to my last stitch, I'm going to purl that last stitch. It's purl 1. So I'm just beginning to see my work. So let's do these rows one more time because it's just a little piece, and then we'll move on to that bigger swatch. So for a right side row, we're going to knit 1. And then there's an asterisk. So it's knit 2. 1, 2. And then purl 2, knit 2, purl 2 all the way across. There's my purl 2. Here's my last purl 2. And for that last stitch, I'm going to knit 1. And then on my wrong side rows, it's purl 1. And then knit 2, purl 2 all the way across. So you can start to see the pattern emerging now that we have a few rows on here. And other than the edge stitches, which you have to pay attention to what they are and what they want you to do. Other than that, you're basically knitting the knits and purling the purls, by which I mean, if you see these little bumps up against your needle, those are purl stitches. You're going to purl the purls. We call them purl bumps. If you see this stitch here that has its little V at the bottom and its little curved hat on, you're going to knit those because you're looking at a knit stitch. Again, not talking about the edge stitches. You have to pay attention to the edge stitches. So you're going to continue on in this pattern until your work measures from the very beginning, until it measures 6 inches or 15 centimeters, ending on a second row. So you're going to complete a wrong side row. Here I am on my last stitch of my wrong side row, and that's a purl. So I'm going to continue in pattern until that work measures 6 inches or 15 centimeters. And then it says change to larger needles and proceed in stocking stitch until work from beginning measures 8.5 inches, ending on a purl row. So again, I'm just going to show you this real quick. To change to the larger needles, I'm just going to knit off the smaller needle onto the larger needle. I'm not going to have to move that off the needle to someplace else. I'm just going to knit it off onto the larger needle. And so we finished with a wrong side row, which means I'm making a right side row. And in stocking stitch, a right side row is a knit stitch, and a wrong side row is a purl stitch. So now you would have knit, again, you would have knit far more stitches and far more inches than I have done here on camera. Now I can get rid of my small needles. I can set them aside. And now again, I can just knit my right side rows and purl my wrong side rows. And I'm going to keep going until the work measures 8.5 inches or 21.5 centimeters, ending on a purl row. So does anybody have any questions about getting this set up and getting up to the crown?
I don't see any at the moment.
Well, aren't you also smart?
Our Tuesday night classes do tend to be a bit more, we're all just kind of hanging out at this point in the evening. Jasmine, I see you smiling there. You're like, I'm just hanging out.
I'm going to switch over to my bigger piece, and I have already.
Actually, there is 2 questions here.
Okay, let me just say, I just realized I have done all my knit and purl and I didn't change the stocking yet. So I'm going to put 2 rows of stockinette on while you guys ask me things.
Awesome. So there's a question here. Do you have to use circular needles?
No, you absolutely do not, because we are knitting this piece flat and then we're going to seam it up. So absolutely you can use straight needles. The reason I don't use straight needles on camera is they tend to bang into the table and make a lot of noise. So I always use circular needles on camera, but that is just because it is more convenient for me. You can use whatever kind of knitting needles work for you.
A great question about measuring. Does measuring start with the stitches on the needle or below?
That is a really super good question. I don't know if this is the official there's a couple things. Okay, there's a couple things I want to talk about. One is, so you're going to begin measuring at the very beginning, right? And you're going to, what I tend to do, and I don't know if this is the official Your Inspiration stance, but I've been knitting a whole long time and this is what I do. I knit to the middle of I measure to the middle of the needle. So I don't stop down here and I don't start up here. I measure right to the middle of the needle, because whatever my next row is, when I put that on, this row is going to count. You know what I mean? It's going to drop. I will also say this: if you are knitting something and you have to measure something to 1/4 of an inch, it matters a great deal for something like this that has, you know, a 6-inch ribbing. If you go 6 1/4 or 5 3/4, it is honestly not going to make that big a difference. And I tell all my beginners all the time, nobody is walking around with the pattern in their hand coming up to you and saying, hey, that pattern said 6 inches and you did 6 1/4. The knitting police are going to get you. No, they're not. I promise you. But I measure to the middle of the needle. Now, I'm on a size US 7, 4.5 millimeter needle right now. Again, half the height of that knitting needle is 2 1/4 millimeters. It just doesn't make that big a difference. But if you're knitting on something with much bigger needles, you know, your needle could be this wide instead of this wide. And then, yeah, that's where I have always just measured to the middle of the needle. I hope that helped. The other thing you can do, if you can't remember which side the tail is on, to remember which side the row is on, what I did with the ribbing is I just chunked a little stitch marker on there to remind me that was a right side row, so I didn't have to go back and look. I tell you what, particularly, I suspect none of you have taken classes with me yet, because I've mostly been doing intermediate here for Michaels, but I use those little locking stitch markers. I use them for everything. You can get them at Michaels. It is a wonderful tool to have a bunch of in your little knitting kit, because they are just handy in a lot of situations. So I'm just going to purl back. Now my sample is 50 stitches, not 106 stitches. Again, in the interest of my getting through some of the crown shaping before it became 8 p.m. my time and everybody passed out. So I'm going to jump to the 15th row of the crown decreasing. It's the same context all the way through. I didn't want to be doing crown decreasing for an hour and then you didn't get to see me do anything else. But let me finish this wrong side row, and then I want to talk just really briefly about those extra stitches at the beginning and the end and why they're there. I can't believe I forgot to change to stockinette stitch. I was just cruising right along in my ribbing and forgot. Do you ever do that? You get so involved in your knitting, you just knit and knit and knit.
I recently made the arms of a baby sweater about 3 inches longer than they needed to be.
So you knit them for a sloth is what you're telling us, a baby
Yes,
sloth.
a baby sloth.
Oh my goodness. All right, guys, I'm knitting as fast as I can. I'm almost there. Okay, so we're going to jump to the 15th row of the crown decreases. But before we do that, we're going to talk about the beginning of the end. So again, if you were doing the scarf, this would be all you would see. Oh my goodness, I forgot a point. For those of you who are asking about measuring, I will also say this: when I'm measuring ribbing, I pull it out a little bit. I don't like go crazy, but watch. You see how tall this is? If I pull this out in width, like it's going to be around somebody's head, it gets shorter. Do you see what I'm saying? So here it is. And then I'm acting like it would do if it was on somebody's head. It's shorter. So if you're measuring ribbing, pull it out. Don't go crazy. Don't yank it into submission. But you'll often see an abbreviation that says, you know, measure it slightly stretched. And that's, again, that you want to be careful that you're not losing all that height, because it's one thing when it's this way, you know, it's another thing when it's this way. So that was the point I wanted to make. Now, moving on. So what you have here, here's your knit 2, and then there's a column of knit stitches right here. So it looks like 3 stitches in a row that are the same. If you go over here, we have our last 2 purls and then a row of knit stitches over here. The reason we have the extra stitch on either side is that when we join it and seam it up, we're going to lose those edge stitches. They're going to get caught up in the seam. So because they're going to get caught up the seam, we're not going to see them. And so by having those extra stitches that we know we're going to lose, when you're looking around where the seam is, you still see knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. You don't see the seam as much. So that's why it's slightly offset when you do that. All right, let me get myself settled here. All right, so looking at the 15th row, it says knit 1, and then there is an asterisk, and it says K2 tog. So K2 tog stands for knit 2 together. And that is a right leaning decrease. So we're going to take our right hand needle tip and put it under 2 stitches at the same time. Yarn over, pull through both stitches, and pop it off the left hand needle. So I took 2 stitches and I turned them into 1. And then it says knit 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the next abbreviation it says is SSK. Now SSK is a left leaning decrease, and it stands for slip, slip, knit. So we're going to slip 1 stitch knitwise. We're going to slip the 2nd stitch knitwise. And now we're going to pop them back onto the left hand needle and knit 2 together through the back loop. So we're going to insert our right needle tip right in the center. We're catching the back of the stitches, the back loop, not the front leg like we normally did. So yarn over, bring it through those 2, and pop that off. Now it says repeat from asterisk to last stitch, knit 1. So let's do it again. So that knit 1 doesn't count. It's not inside the asterisk. It says K2 tog. So that's knit 2 together. Knit 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. SSK. Slip, slip. Put them back on the left-hand needle. Knit 2 together through back loop. You don't want to slip the 2 stitches together. You do want to slip one and then slip the second one because they don't lay nicely if you do not do that. So once again, we're repeating. Knit 2 together. Knit 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. SSK. Slip 1, slip 2, put it back on the left-hand needle, knit 2 together through back loop. I'm going to show one more time, then I'm going to show you a little SSK trick that I like to use that you may use if you like. So we have that asterisk again, knit 2 together. Knit 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. SSK. Slip, slip. Now this is my little trick. I put them back on the left-hand needle, but I don't take my right-hand needle out, and I'm already set up for knitting through the back loop. It's a little bit faster. If it confuses you, do it the original way. But that is a little trick to make you be able to go faster when you're cruising right along. Here's my last one stitch. We're going to knit that. So on the 14th row, earlier it says on the second and alternate rows purl. So every time we come to a wrong side row for the end of the hat, we're going to purl back. And I'm going to purl back. I should have 42 stitches now. And if we have any questions, now's a really great time to ask.
So Debbie had a question just about, hers says knit 2 together from the 3rd row on. When do you start decreasing third row or 15th row? So if you could help clarify that, that'd be
well,
great.
You are going to start decreasing on the 3rd row, but I don't have that because I didn't start with 106 stitches. I started with 50 stitches. So it's entirely likely that you missed the beginning when I said I'm not knitting a full-size hat because it would take too long to get to the end of the row. It wouldn't be interesting for you guys. And it would be hard to see on camera. So I began with 50 stitches. You will have 106 stitches. So you will start shaping the crown as soon as you have gotten your piece to 8.5 inches or 21.5 centimeters, ending with a purl row. You're going to start your decreases on that first row. It's a shape crown, first row, right side, knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 22, SSK. So the reason I'm still knitting, the reason I'm moving on is I want you to notice that what happens is the mechanics of all of these decrease rows are really similar. What changes is the number of stitches between the decreases. And I also want you to be able to see what they look like. So I hope that answered your question. Do we have anything else, Allie?
If you were to knit this in the round, would you omit the extra 2 stitches?
Absolutely, yes. That is exactly what I would do. If I was going to knit this on circular needles in the round, I would lose those 2 stitches. I would cast on a multiple of 2 And then I would follow the instructions between the asterisks, ignoring the first and last stitch in the pattern. In fact, once you print it out, you could get your pencil and just cross those out if that's what you wanted to do.
Wonderful. And then there is just one more question. So Linda was just wondering, still a little bit confused about wrong side and right side. Is there really a difference
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
fabric?
Yes, there is, and it will be easier to see in a few more rows. So if it's okay with you,
Wonderful.
let me put 2 more rows on and then we'll talk about it.
Perfect.
Okay, is that all right? All right, so now the 16th row was my purl back. I've moved on to the 17th row. Knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, SSK, slip, slip, put them back on the left hand needle, knit 2 together through back loop. Moving on, knit 2 together, knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is what I'm saying. The mechanics are the same. Oops, sorry, that was knit 6 SSK. But before we had 8 stitches between the decreases, and now we have 6. And if you were reading through the pattern, on the next row, we'll have 4 on the next right side row. And on the one after that, we'll have 2. So what's happening is we are losing stitches between the decreases, and the decreases are staying the same. So there's my 2 decreases, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is because I can't talk and count at the same time. SSK. Knit 2 together, knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, SSK, knit 1. So there's 2 reasons why right side, wrong side counts. One is in the ribbing. You want to knit the knits and purl the purls. And since we were working on a multiple of 4, the right side rows start with a knit 2, and the wrong side rows start with a purl 2 on the scarf particularly. And if you got that reversed, you would be knitting seed stitch, not ribbing, because you'd be knitting the purls and purling the knits instead of vice versa. For the stocking stitch, here's my right side. So you're getting what looks like knit stitches. Remember, we were talking earlier about you have your V's at the bottom and you have your little curvy hat on and you've got a smooth side. Think of a t-shirt. If you got a t-shirt at the store, the right side of the t-shirt is this smooth side. When you look at the wrong side of stocking stitch or stockinette stitch, whichever you prefer to call it, you're seeing purl bumps. So this is a completely, let's see if I can get them next to each other without poking myself in the eye. So on my stocking stitch, on my stockinette or my stocking stitch, here's my right side, smooth, 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 and all the V's. Here's my wrong side, purl bumps. So it absolutely does matter. So in the ribbing, it matters so that you stitch properly. But in stocking stitch, it is really a completely different look. So I'm going to purl back. Do you have any more questions?
We're all set right now.
Perfect. I just had another thought for the person who asked about knitting in the round. If you were to do this in the round, I would also think by the time you got to about this point in the crown shaping, you would need to either do the magic loop, if you're comfortable with that technique, which is when you have the giant circular and you split the stitches onto 2 sides of the 2 pointed parts of the needles and then slide them on the cable, or you're going to have to switch to DPNs or double pointed needles. because the circumference of the opening is going to get too small to accommodate a regular circular knitting needle. So that is another reason for the beginning patterns. We tend to work flat and sew rather than working in the round, because a lot of people are put off by double pointed needles when they're learning. All right. So now I am on the 19th row, knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 4. Remember, we had 8, then we had 6, now we have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, SSK, slip, slip, knit 2 together through the back loop, knit 2 together, knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, SSK, next repeat, knit 2 together. You see how much faster this goes too? You lose a lot of stitches on every row. What is it, 8? Because you have 4 instances of a double decrease. So you lose 8 stitches on every row. So when you get up to here, it goes pretty quick. Oh, wait, what's my SSK? Knit 2 together, knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, SSK, knit 1. So you can see how it's starting to, here, let me put it on the cable so you can see what I'm talking about. So it's starting to gather in. And again, your piece is going to be so much longer than this. This is just a little sample that we're showing on camera. But you can see that the top opening is starting to close up. It's almost closed. So I'm going to purl back, and then we're going to look at the 21st row, and then we're going to look at how to sew up the hat. Okay, moving on to the 21st row, which is our last row of the crown. And actually, before we get to that, I want to talk, I did say earlier about left leaning and right leaning decreases. This is what I mean. The SSKs lean to the left and the knit 2 togethers lean to the right. And what this does is it makes the paired decreases face each other. It just makes it prettier on the top. If you did all SSKs or all K2 tags, the shaping would still work. This is just a little detail to make it look perfect on the top. So we're on the 21st row. We did knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 2, SSK, slip, slip, put them back on the left-hand needle and knit 2 together. Knit 2 together, knit 2, 1, 2, SSK. Knit 2 together, 1, 2, SSK, knit 2 together, 1, 2, SSK, knit 1, and it says we're going to have 18 stitches remaining. Let's see how I did. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right, so it says break yarn leaving a long end. So the reason I'm going to do that, I'm not going to get too crazy because my sample is not so long as yours will be. But what you would like to do is use this long end to sew up the hat. It gives you less ends to weave in later, which is awesome. None of us like weaving in ends, right? So I'm just going to take my cut end and I'm going to put it in my yarn needle. So you'll have a yarn needle or a tapestry needle. The important part is that the point is blunt, unlike a sewing needle, which is very pointy because you want to split the plies and really dig into the fabric. But yarn needles and tapestry needles, the point is blunt, and that's so you don't split the plies. You don't want to go into the middle of a strand of yarn. You want the needle tip to push the strand of yarn aside. So it says thread end through remaining 18 stitches. So what I'm going to do so here's my long end. It's threaded into my yarn needle. And it says thread through remaining stitches. So I'm going to put that yarn needle inside the stitch. And as I do that, I'm going to pop it off the knitting needle. And I'm going to do this so I can close up that top, because I don't want the cold air to get into my head. Now, when my yarn needle gets too full up, I can just slide them down. I can slide them down onto that yarn. It's no big deal. But you want to carefully pick up one at a time because you don't want to drop any. Okay, and get rid of my knitting needle. I don't need that anymore. So it says draw up and fasten securely. So I'm going to pull and pull and pull and pull. So I'm going to pull that into a tight little circle right there, and that's going to be the tippy top of my hat. Now, fasten securely is more of an art than a science. So what I personally like to do, and there are other ways to do this. So again, if you know another way, a better way that makes you happier, you can do it that way. But I like to pull it super tight like I just did. And then I tend to go back to those first loops and go through them again, so that I have 2 strands of yarn going around that opening, because I do not want that opening to pull out. But this, to me, it makes it really sturdy. Now you can see it's loosening up a little bit as I'm working through it, but I'll show you how to fix that in just 1 second. So I've gone through a second time, and now I'm going to tug, 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 tug. Look how tight that is. And that's exactly what we want. And then I'm going to the wrong side, and I'm just going to do a couple of catch stitches. I'm just going to put my needle under a couple of stitches. I don't want to tie a big knot because I don't want that knot up against my head. But if I do that and just catch a couple of stitches to make sure that it stays exactly where I left it, that's going to keep that opening nice and tight. So here's my opening. You see how tight that is? That's exactly what we want. Now it says sew back seam, reversing halfway through ribbing for turn back cuff. So I want to talk ever so briefly about, here, I can get rid of my stitch marker. I don't need that anymore. Mattress stitch. Actually, what I'm going to do, because I talk about how handy those stitch markers are, I'm going to use this to put the 2 sides of my seam together. And again, if you've got a bigger piece, you can use straight pins, you could use these locking stitch markers, but I like to line up my seam and put a couple of either pins or markers in there to make sure that it doesn't, you don't want it to be crooked. You don't want to get down to the end and have 10 stitches left on one side and none on the other side. So I usually use straight pins, but my stitch marker was to hand, so I went for it. So for the mattress stitch, which is how I'm going to sew up my hat, this is my edge stitch and I want it to roll away from me. So I'm going to do it with the right side of the work facing so that I can see if I make a mistake. I want it to look pretty on the outside. And I'm going one stitch in from the edge and I'm going in these little crossbars. I like to go under 2 at a time because otherwise to me it takes way too long. Let's see, I split apply here. Let's see if I can fix that. All right, so that's the left-hand side of my work. Now I'm going back to the other side, to the right-hand side. And again, I'm going to lose this edge stitch, and that's okay. So I'm going to go under. Let's see if I can split this so you can see. You see that there are 2 horizontal bars, 2 bars over my needle. I'm going to pull that through. Now, I do not pull mine super tight at the beginning. I tend to make a few stitches and then tighten it up. Make a few stitches and then tighten it up again, because I can see what I'm doing. And if I've made a mistake, the time to fix it is before I make everything so tight. So now I'm going back to the left-hand side. All right, let's see how close I can get before it gets blurry, because this is a little fiddly. I'm going down where I came up. So this is where I came up before. I'm going down in that same space. I'm going under 2 horizontal bars. There we go. So there's 1, 2. I'm pulling it through, but not all the way. Now I'm going back to the right side. I'm going down where I came up, going under 2 bars. So this is called the mattress stitch. And most times, I hesitate to say always or never, but most times this gives you the neatest finish. And I'll show you why in a second. Let me just get a couple more on here. And you want to stay just 1 stitch in from the end. You don't want to follow this column because with all the decreases there, changes things up a bit. All right, so I can see that I have this sort of even. There's all my loose stitches. So what I'm going to do now that I'm happy with that and I don't feel like I have to pull off is I'm going to give it a little tug. Now look at that. That seam is almost invisible. The seam is right here, right where my thumbnail is, but it is almost invisible. And that's why we use mattress stitch for so many things. So once again, I'm going back to where I was. Under 2. Under 2, etc. So anybody have any questions about this so far? Because we are going to switch directions here in a minute.
I don't think so.
All right. You do a little bit of, you do a couple more here. Some little magic going on. I really do love the mattress stitch. It's just, I know a lot of people don't like to sew up or do finishing, but I just feel like it's so magic. So here, I'm going to pull my stitches up. Now, I want you to look here specifically at the ribbing. Remember, we were talking earlier about those extra stitches and I wanted to hide them so that my knit to purl to ribbing works. So look right here, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2. There's my seam in there, but because I had those edge stitches, I don't interrupt the pattern. So that is why those edge stitches are there. So the last thing that I want to talk about is where it says reversing halfway through the ribbing for the turn back cuff. So in your instance, you're going to have 6 inches or 15 centimeters of ribbing. So 3 inches up from the end, or 7.5 centimeters, or however you want to measure that. You're going to turn the piece so the wrong side is out. Now you're going to continue in your mattress stitch. So here's the wrong side of the mattress stitch. There's my edge stitches rolled towards the inside. I didn't show you that, right? But now I'm going to go back to mattress stitch. I'm going to keep doing the same stitch. Under 2 on this side, under 2 on the other side, etc. But I want to change which way the seam is facing. So once again, I'm still doing my mattress stitch. And again, I'm keeping it really loose until I'm sure I'm happy. And then I can tighten it up. And I am rushing a little bit because we're on camera, but if I've counted correctly, it should come out pretty close to even at the end. If you have made an error and you have 1 too many stitches on one side, instead of going under 2, you can go under 1 and it'll even out. Okay, I'm going to tighten this up. You don't want to do the whole seam and then pull it. That is asking for trouble because sometimes it just gets aggravated partway through. So again, like I've been doing, oh, my tail's in the way there. Like I've been doing, just a few stitches at a time and then tighten it a few stitches at a time. If you find you've made a mistake, just pull the cut end out of the needle and you can unravel a couple stitches at a time. All right, so here I am at the end. I got 1 stitch left on each side. So I'm going to grab him. And I'm going to grab him. I'm going to tighten it up. And then I would just weave in my end. But now I'm going to make things interesting. So here's my little teeny tiny hat. Here is my stocking stitch on the top. Here is my ribbing on the bottom. Here is my seam. So there's my ugly on the outside, but only for the bottom 3 inches. And the reason we did that is because when we wear the hat and we want to fold it up, here is beautiful, nice seam hidden. And here is beautiful, nice seam hidden. If you did the stitch, if you did the mattress stitch the same way the whole way down, when you folded it up, you would see the seam, and that's ugly, and we don't want to see that. So that is why we have you switch off halfway down. So now I'm at the end of my seam. I want my seam side facing me while I weave in my end. So again, I'm just going to catch these stitches in extra time to make sure that they're tight. And then I'm going to weave in my end and trim it. And honestly, I'm just going to weave it into the seam. I'm not going to go crazy and try to weave it in and out of the ribbing and hide it because nobody's going to see the seam anyway. So I'm just going to do my weaving in and out over here. So remember, when you want to do the scarf, you've just got your multiple of 2 and you're just going to knit in the ribbing and there's no extra stitches. But we're almost out of time and I'm almost finished my little miniature hat here. So do we have any more questions before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. There's a lot of comments here that they normally don't like sewing, so they do hats in the round. They've never really seen a tutorial covering seaming up your hats like this. And it's been very helpful.
Good, thank you. I will also say this, for those of you who are unfamiliar with mattress stitch, this is really great for side seams in garments. If you're knitting a sweater, that mattress stitch on the side seam is genius. You can almost not see the side seam when you do that. So it's just a handy little trick to have in your bag of tricks. It's just a cool technique and you can use it in a lot of places. But yeah, a lot of people don't like finishing up, but then you have other people who don't like knitting in the round. So my tail's kind of short here. I'm going to show you one more little tiny tip before we're almost out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weave my needle in and out like I would have if it was threaded, because I only have a teeny tiny little tail left. Now I can thread my needle. Let me twist that up so it doesn't split. I'll put that in my, and this is an enormous needle, but again, I use this giant one on camera so you can see what I'm doing. Now I can pull it through, pull it out, trim my thread, and there is my teeny tiny hat with my perfectly sewn seam. I'm gonna have to see if somebody has a little doll or a stuffed animal that this will fit.
Adorable. Perfect.
All right, well, I'm going back to the front camera and wave goodbye. Goodbye.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. And thank you so much
much
for another great community classroom. And then just a reminder that this class recording will be available in 24 to 48 hours for those of you looking to rewatch it. And save
Thanks
this
so
seaming
much, you
video
guys.
for later. Perfect. Well, thank you all so much. Have a good one.